Evening, everyone. Chicago Joe here, coming to you. It's been a while since I've done a video, and that's kind of become a trend lately. So we're gonna make a video. It's a Thursday night here. I usually make these on Friday nights, Saturday nights, primarily because I like to have a drink. So starting out, we got this called Everything Rhymes with Orange IPA. It's IPA with a little bit of orange peel in it. From a Rough Tail Brewing Company out of Oklahoma City. So it's a good beer. I always like to give a shout out to some of these smaller companies, smaller breweries and distilleries that I like to partake in when I find something unique at the store. I actually have some friends who used to laugh at me because every time they saw me, I would never be drinking the same thing. I'd always have something new. So I wanted to come at you with a little bit of that to begin. So cheers to everyone tonight. So I wanted to give you guys a little quick update on sports. But before we do, a few housekeeping items. Please tell your friends about me. I do need more views. I'm not getting very many. I don't know if it's the content or if I'm just not doing these enough or getting the word out there enough. I know there's many places you can go nowadays to get much better videos than the ones I make, but you know what? I'm here. I'm your average Chicago Joe just trying to make videos in the most basic way possible. So there will be more production value to these if I start getting some more traction with it. I'm not upset about it. I'm gonna keep doing these. I'm hoping somebody can benefit from them, and I enjoy doing them and putting some of my thoughts about Chicago sports on paper. So I'm gonna keep doing these for you. One other piece of housekeeping items. I've never really disclosed, but one of the reasons, like, I always said this page was kind of a play on the average Joes from Dodgeball. So Chicago Joe, I just try to be that regular guy who's not gonna have a ton of production value. I'm not gonna know every statistic. I'm not gonna be looking everything up. And I'm actually coming to you today without my trusty Chromebook that has Gemini loaded up for it. And once again, I'll never put AI in. I mean, I might use AI to help with some of the production stuff with this, but you're never gonna see AI generated content. It's always gonna be me in front of this camera, kind of giving you my thoughts. But one of the other reasons behind the Chicago Joe page is my late uncle, um, Joseph Heaney. He was a huge Chicago sports fan. He hailed from Berwyn. We always call him the thing from Berwyn. It came from Berwyn. It's for any of you that like the Svengoolie reference, but uh, he was a doctor. He was a respiratory therapist. He was a great guy. He was my confirmation sponsor. So for those of you that are religious, or specifically the Catholics in my viewing audience, so but he was also a fixture in our life. He was one of the most interesting, different people in the world, one of the nicest guys you would ever know. But he always had all this random information. It's almost like he sat around just researching random stuff about Chicago sports, about military, about this or that. And so he always had these stories for you that he found in a book somewhere. And he was just that type of guy. And so this page is also a shout out to him. And, he passed away a few years ago. But I mean, he was a fighter. He went down fighting. And Joseph Heaney, he deserves all the credit for this as well. But he kind of sparked a lot of my interest in Chicago sports and was always kind of having those conversations with me. He's probably one of the only guys in Chicago that I can remember that successfully was both a White Sox and a Cubs fan. I've never been a White Sox fan. I never will be, but he was one of those guys that was able to pull it off. So certainly a special breed he was. So a few updates. Let's just go through some of the sports. I don't have much for you today. We're not going to get into a roster breakdown or anything like that. Like I said, I don't have my computer here with me to even research anything or look it up on the fly. But let's just start with the elephant in the room, the biggest elephant in the room. The Chicago Cubs are 2-8 in their last 10 games, and they're on a 5-game losing streak, which also includes, I think it was a 3-game sweep by the Brewers on a homestand at Wrigley Field. Guys, this is not good. I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. There's going to be ups and downs to this season. This team is still 8 games above 500. We are a game and a half out of first place. The Brewers overtook us by winning those few games against us this past week. There's not a lot of good I can say about the Cubs right now. I still have faith that this team is built to win. I still have faith that we have guys that are injured right now that when they come back, this team looks different. But there's not a lot of guys injured right now that are hitters. Our pitching staff is beat to shreds. We're still waiting on Justin Steele to come back. We're waiting on Matthew Boyd to come back. And granted, we don't know what Steele's going to look like. He's coming back from a long hiatus. But Boyd has been, once he comes back, he might be all right because he was out for, I think, 6 weeks it was. So I think we're getting to the end of that. But even Shota had a terrible start this week, the worst he's had yet this year. This team, I would say, is firing on all cylinders in a negative way right now. There's nothing good I can say about them. The hitting's gone silent. When Dansby Swanson is jacking home runs and you're excited about it because it's the only runs you're getting in the game, I don't know, man. And Bregman still looks pretty good. Like a lot of these guys will be all right, but they are in a major funk right now, major slump, and dropping. They scored 10 against the White Sox in one of those 2 wins out of the last 10 games, and outside of that, it's been dry as far as everything goes. PCA, excuse me. He'll come back. I have faith in him. I haven't lost faith in this team or anybody on the team, but man, this has been a stretch for all the negative stretches I've seen. And if they don't start turning it around once June hits and we start to get some people back, I'm gonna start maybe not hitting the panic button, but kind of getting alarmed. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this team was built to win, and there's no winning going on. So Brewers, they got rid of so many people from last year. Like, this was not supposed to be a team that's in first place right now, and I don't know if the Brewers are hot or if they're doing like they did last year, where they just start off kind of slow and then suddenly they're the team to beat. And are the Brewers going to go on and fight for the division again, and then maybe try and fight against the Dodgers for a right to go to the World Series again? I mean, I thought they lost enough people that, they lost Peralta, they lost, I don't know any of the other names that they lost, but this is not the same team from last year, and yet the results are looking about the same. So we still got a ways to go. It's not June yet. The dog days of summer have not hit. We're not even close to the All-Star break, the trade deadline. I am seeing a lot of rumors heat up, though, that like Cubs need pitching, and I don't know that they do. I thought they had enough starting pitching arms coming into the season, and rightfully so, because now we got Boyd and Steele out. Shota's not looking great. And Cabrera just had a blister on his middle finger, I think it was, this past week. So who knows how many starts he's about to miss. That's a recurring problem with him. When he was with the Marlins last year, he had the same problem with another blister. And so here we go again. Like, our starting pitching staff is pretty bad right now. And if we can't score runs to outscore other teams, because we're not going to stop the Brewers from scoring 5 runs, especially with our pitching staff. But if we can't get those bats hot and get some people jacking home runs and getting some hits on the board, and we're not even scoring with runners in scoring position. So even when we do have the opportunities, we're not capitalizing. There's no RBIs coming in. So overall, not hitting the panic button yet, but I don't like what I'm seeing. And we're getting to the point where I'm okay with like a 10 to 20 game stretch where it's just like, yeah, the Cubs are just not doing it, but we can still have faith. But once we start getting past that, I'm like, okay, something's got to turn around. Someone's got to get hot. Someone's got to spark this team to get going. And frankly, we're about halfway to the point where I start saying, okay, now who's going to step up? Because if someone doesn't, it becomes a big problem. So that's all I really have for the Cubs today. So we'll move on. So the Bulls are kind of the second team I've been watching right now. Last we talked, they had just hired Bryson Graham as their executive vice president, and they do have a general manager now. And honestly, I can't remember his name, but they have people coming in. I think it's the guy from Orlando, and so here's kind of where I'm at, and it's a little bit different from the last time that we talked. I had mentioned that Bryson Graham was not the obvious choice. He was kind of a different choice. This was a different move that you don't expect the Reinsdorfs to make. You expected them to go after the guy from the Timberwolves, the obvious choice who has built something, had some success, and is showing signs of being a modern mind who knows how to win. And we chose a guy who came from the Pelicans and the Hawks. And honestly, neither of those organizations are exciting anybody right now. So it's kind of like, why are we picking a guy with this mindset and thinking he can do anything different that he hasn't done at his last 2 places? And that wasn't really a concern for me. I was like, clearly they're the experts. I'm going to leave it up to them. I'm Chicago Joe. I'm not gonna sit here and try to play like I know any more than they do. So I was like, maybe there's something about the way he had a vision or something, or like he was hamstringed by owner leadership or ownership at those two other franchises that he wouldn't have those hurdles here. And so maybe there's something he was just saying like, I can do this for you, but you gotta stay out of my way. Or I don't know what the inner workings of that are. I'm not one of the reporters from ESPN that gets those kind of deals, but I was curious what his strategy was going to be. And if you remember, we talked about how he's got this slap thing where he wants size, length, athleticism, and oh my god, I already forgot the last one, but basically he wants these long, athletic, defensive type players who can learn to shoot threes and learn to be better shooters. But he wants defense first, length first, and so he's got some big decisions to make. I mean, here we go. We've got two draft picks. We got 4 and 15, and you know, at first I was hearing a lot of excitement about these. Like, we're not going to get the Bonsa. We're probably not going to get Cameron Boozer. But now there's some criticism towards Boozer. And I don't know if this is just teams trying to position and trying to sow some seeds of doubt into some of the top drafting teams to see if they maybe want to pass on one of these guys. Sometimes that happens. I don't know what the media is up to right now, and I don't know what games are being played. But some people are calling Boozer just kind of like a safe option. He has the stats to prove that he's ready for that level. He has a dad who knows how to play basketball and has played for the Bulls, so that's kind of a big deal for a lot of Bulls fans thinking like if he drops a four, should we take him? I've also heard though that he's boring. He's boring. He's kind of slower, and he doesn't really translate to the NBA game that well. And let's keep in mind when Carlos Boozer played, it was a much different league. That was before, I think it was before, but maybe a little bit during when Golden State was kind of changing the way this game is played. And so I don't know how he translates, and there's been some doubts about that now, and I don't know where these doubts are coming from. I don't know if it's, maybe the Bulls are starting those rumors to try and see if they can force one of these teams to pass on him and maybe have him drop down to 4 so the Bulls can get him. There's some of that at play too. We've talked about Darren Peterson. I'm a KU fan. I think he's got talent, but I'm not convinced that he's a next level talent yet. I'm not convinced that he's got the IQ for basketball. I mean, the dude literally almost killed himself by taking too much creatine, and it caused his body to have full body cramps. He ended up in the hospital almost in serious condition, and it affected the way he played the rest of the year. Every time he got a little bit of a cramp, he tried to take himself out of the game, and good on Bill Self for playing tough and telling him like you gotta stay on that court. You can't be scared. And that that to me, it is part of a failure on the KU medical staff. But this guy wasn't very smart. He was taking a supplement that he was taking it in too much of a quantity, and his body wasn't handling it, and he never thought that that was a problem. And that to me is just, that's not NBA level talent. You got to have that IQ of your body's part of it too. If you're going to play 82 games, and I don't know how much some of these guys want to do minute restrictions, but I I just, to me, you got to take care of your body too if you're going to be an NBA player, because you're going to get beat up. It's going to be a long season, and God forbid you make the playoffs and now you're 82 plus games and playing 7 game series within a week to 2 weeks, and so it can be a grueling pace. And I don't know if Peterson's got that, but now we're getting into Caleb Wilson, and now people are saying that Caleb Wilson is there's seeds of doubt being sowed into him. So part of me thinks that this is all a ploy. Like, let's just kind of crap on all of them and see if we can get some of these guys to pass, and whoever's sitting at 5 or 6 maybe trying to see if they can get a pass on some of these guys and have them drop down to them. Maybe that's a play too. I've also heard a lot about Acuff Jr. I I don't think he's explosive. Some people compare him to Derrick Rose. I don't think that's a fair comparison. The athleticism and explosiveness is not there. But let's put it this way: John Calipari coaches guards who do well in the NBA. You've got the John Walls of the world. You've got the Derrick Roses of the world. He's got at least 2 or 3 other guys that did really well in the NBA, and so you have to look at it too. I'm a big fan of pedigrees. I'm a big fan of, like, every person that you get from this school has this kind of pedigree, and you can count on them to be that. And I mean, proof is in the pudding when you look at, like, let's look at the NFL where you say, like, are you going to draft a quarterback from Ohio State? Who cares if they won a national championship and a Heisman? How many times have drafting a quarterback from Ohio State worked out for anybody? I mean, CJ Stroud is doing pretty well. I still think Justin Fields is a decent quarterback, but he's going to be sitting behind Patrick Mahomes more than likely for a long time this year, and unless there's an injury. But I think Fields will show his strength in that Kansas City system if he gets a chance to play. But for me, I kind of look at it. I'm like you can always kind of tell from a school and a coach like what you're getting, and so going back to Acuff, I think like John Calipari does produce good guards for the NBA, and so he's kind of been in discussion, and there's even been talks about should the Bulls trade back that fourth pick to maybe 5 or 6 and get something out of it, get a player out of it, or get some extra picks out of it in the first round, and find a way to like leverage that, and then maybe still get their guy. But there's even been some talks about how Caleb Wilson is just basically a lobber. He just plays a dunk game. Like when he gets the NBA, I look at maybe a Blake Griffin style player where it's like, you know, Lob City was fun to watch, but everyone knew Blake Griffin was never meant to be like a superstar for a long, long career. He, no shade on him, but he was just a big flashy dunker. He was never that dominant guy who was going to go to multiple teams. He was not a Kevin Durant who's going to just go everywhere and dominate, and you give him max contract no matter who you are, and he might be 40 years old. You're still going to pay him $40 million a year to come score points for you. That was never going to be Blake Griffin, and I almost want to make that comparison with Caleb Wilson. And I like Caleb Wilson. I think he talks about being a predator. I think that was a cool thing to say. I love hearing that. That's the type of guy you need in the NBA. But is being a predator, is that going to translate to him being a consistent scorer, a consistent defensive presence? Or is he just going to become a guy who can just be super athletic, but he's really not going to contribute a whole lot? I mean, Patrick Williams is athletic. How's he working out for us? So I get weary about that pick. I mean, it seemed like a slam dunk for a while, but now that I'm seeing a little bit more about it, I don't know how sold on him I am. So there's a lot of questions here, and I'm not crapping on all the top picks. Like Bulls at number 4, they have a chance to get somebody who could be a game changer, but it doesn't come without some serious concerns on each of these guys. There's no clear Cooper flag in this draft. Like there's no clear LeBron James. There's no clear Wembayana. There's no clear person. Like even the top pick, which is probably going to be AJ. I don't know that he's as clear as it is for these picks. There's no Derrick Rose, and I'm just saying like there is no slam dunk in these top 4. And so we do have to kind of pick them apart just to say like, okay, well at number 4 we're going to get one of these guys, and if we don't trade back, and the question is going to be who is that. So going back to Bryson Graham though, like I'm looking at some of the people he's looking at to choose for coach, and 2 names just popped up this week. That is one of the assistants from Charlotte, and it's another assistant from the Hawks. And this is what I was afraid of. And look, he's got some great names on there. One of the guys from Minnesota is on there. Sean Sweeney from the Spurs. I like having somebody from a team that has success. I even heard he's looking at somebody from assistant from the Thunder. Like you need to pull, and then Jerry Stackhouse is on the list now, which I don't know how well he's doing. And everyone says, oh well, he's coming from Golden State, so if we can get him, that's a big win. But Steve Kerr just had a meeting with the leadership of Golden State to talk about how much he really wants to be coached there. So I don't know if it's him just not wanting to do it anymore. But as much as I love Steve Kerr as a Bulls fan, as much as I have seen his success as a coach, not only that, he won the gold medal at the Olympics for us as coach. And I look at him and I go, okay, well, Golden State hasn't done much. Ever since they gave Curry his money, which is rightfully deserved, but they haven't done much. Like Klay Thompson had to step back. Draymond's not Draymond anymore. They don't have Durant anymore. And they failed to build a new superstar. They failed to pull anybody in that can really do it. And as much as I love Steph and that team, it was just like, man, Kerr has failed to really build that into a winner again, a consistent winner again, ever since that dynasty kind of fell. And that's kind of concerning because even the Spurs, when they lost a lot of people, they still were able to compete. And here they are back competing again now after they lost a dynasty for a while. And, so, but hearing we've got people from the Hawks and the Hornets on there, it's like, once again, you need to pull people from a team that has a pedigree. If the team's not successful, if they're not winning on the court, then what good is an assistant from that team going to give you? Because it's like a job. If you do a job and then you go somewhere else and do a similar job but in a higher position, you're going to run that new position kind of like you have learned from your previous job. I mean, I've worked in many industries before. I take the best from every job, and the next job I go to, I say I kind of want to run it like I did back there. And that's what these guys are going to do when you hire them from some of these organizations. And it's like the Atlanta Hawks and Charlotte Hornets are no better. Like, one of them is a 6 seed and one of them is a 9 seed. But you're telling me we're going to get out of this play-in tournament level and do a full rebuild to try and get ourselves above that by hiring somebody who's currently coaching, not head coaching a team, but currently on a staff of a team that's doing that same thing. Like, how is that going to help? And so I think those two were just kind of added to a list. But even Golden State's kind of in that same position where they're kind of like a play-in only team. And so, like, I'm looking at three of these candidates in like a list of like 5 or 6, and I'm thinking, oh my, we're going to pull in a coach that maybe is just here to develop some players. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which, cheers. So that kind of brings me to my next point is like, what is this Bulls plan? What is Bryson Graham's plan for this team? And he keeps talking about a rebuild. He says, we're going to do it right. We're going to take the time to rebuild it so that we're no longer the 8th or 9th seed in the East. And we're not going to play Miami for the play-in game and lose again just to have the same result. I say that's fine, but you've got a core. You've got Giddey, you've got Bucelis, you've got Swang. You're going to have the 4th pick and the 15th pick. You've got all these second-round picks you can leverage for something. There's some free agents out there that you can maybe go sign. Rudy Gobert is apparently going to be a free agent and has expressed interest. I'm not thinking that this is necessarily like full rebuild. If you want to go full rebuild, you're going to get rid of like Bucelis and Giddey and some of these other guys, and unless you think they're going to be part of a core. But I don't see this team as being necessarily like, let's go tank and get the #1 pick next year. But he's committed to this rebuild, and some of these names on this list almost look like guys who are like, reminds me of like when the Cubs hired Dale Swayham. It's like you knew that guy was never going to be the manager for the Cubs and take him to a World Series. And he was never judged based on his ability to get wins or losses. He was always judged based on his ability to develop players. But then I looked to Oklahoma City. I'm like, they did not hire a coach to do a rebuild. I mean, they did. They hired Denal to be a rebuilding coach, but they also hired him because they knew once the rebuild was done, he was going to have those X's and O's and that firepower to turn them into a contender. And I'm not seeing that strategy here. I'm seeing Bryson Graham going and getting some guy who's going to build this team up. We're going to sit stale for like 2 or 3 years. And then I'm worried that like we're going to get to a point where we need to go hire another coach. And are we going to get that right? Like, shouldn't we be getting it right now? Shouldn't we be getting a guy who can develop these players, but once they're developed, he has a plan to take them into a contender? That's the kind of guy we're looking for. And I'm worried that we're looking for a pure rebuilder right now. And I'm wondering if some of these guys are not expressing interest because they're worried they're going to come into a situation that, frankly, they're never going to dig themselves out of if we're going into a full rebuild. And so I don't know about this strategy right now, and I'm kind of souring on Bryson Graham. I thought he was going to be solid, but I'm not seeing it all play out right now the way I would think that it should be. And maybe he'll make some moves, but I'm not hopeful for this right now. I'm kind of worried about he's trying to pull in some of these contacts from the Hawks, like an assistant coach from the Atlanta Hawks. Like, I don't know, man. Like, Atlanta Hawks are not the beacon of. I think they're the 6th seed in the East this year. That's not the beacon of the type of organization you want to turn this into. If you pull all the people from there, if you pull a guy who was their general manager and then you pull an assistant coach from there, aren't you just destined to be the Hawks? I mean, you're going to have different personnel, but I mean, how is that going to be any different? I mean, we want to make bets that we're the 6th seed in the East next year? Like that's, I mean, if that's the coach we're going to go get, but like I would like to see someone from the Spurs, someone who's been the architect of their resurgence. Like they're looking really good right now. But granted, they have one of the most dominant big men. But like I want to see somebody from Minnesota. I want to see someone from the Knicks. Like bring Thibodeau back. He should have never been let go. But like I want to see somebody from a team who's got win. Like they don't need to be winning a title, but man, give me somebody who's got a successful team, maybe in the top five in their conference. Like I'm just not seeing this. Like let's go build our super coaching staff and staff of our front office based on like, oh, that's how we did in Atlanta. Let's just be them over here in Chicago. That's not how we're gonna get to where we need to go. So those are my thoughts on the Bulls. I'm not gonna get too much into that. I don't really want to belabor the point too much, but it hasn't been a good couple weeks for me from what I'm seeing in the Bulls. I was excited. I thought maybe they were doing something different this time. I thought maybe he said we are going to model this whole thing off Oklahoma City's model and try to kind of be more like them. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I was all for that. And now I'm just not seeing the moves that I would hope that he would make. Like, it's just the people that he's trying to get. Like, this does not look like an organization that's getting primed to head into something that is going to lead to anything. So, we'll probably skip Blackhawks tonight. They still have a high pick in the draft, so I've expressed my interest about that, but there hasn't really been much news about them that I really want to like chat about right now. So we'll move on to the Bears. The Bears have been linked to some high profile defensive players, so it looks like they are still looking to beef up their defense, but I honestly don't know how much cap space they have left to do anything like that. I know Arizona has a D lineman who seems to be wanting a trade and want to get out of Arizona, so that's also a thing. They've been linked to that, but of course, Ryan Poles does do a good job of like anytime there's a guy open that should be of interest to him, he searches it out. It doesn't mean he's going to go after or make an offer, but he does a good job of really just vetting a situation and making sure like if there's an opportunity there, let's make sure we don't miss it. It doesn't mean we have to be aggressive and gung ho and go after it, but I think he does a good job of that. They also signed a running back. It pretty much is putting Roshan Johnson on alert. We have Monagai, we still have DeAndre Swift, so our running back room is still solid. But Roshan has kind of been underperforming. He hasn't really been there, hasn't really like stepped up to show that he's a third asset that we just love to have behind those two. If somebody goes down, we have a 1-2 punch still. Like that's kind of what they're looking for. So they brought in somebody, and we'll see how that competition plays out for them. Outside of that, though, not much other Bears news. The Bears do have a Thanksgiving Day game. I'm very excited playing the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving Day. As much as that's stressful for me on a holiday where I'd rather not have to stress, I am so sick of watching the Dallas Cowboys play on on Thanksgiving Day, and I don't want to watch the Eagles either. So watching the Bears play Detroit, but I don't know how does Detroit always get that home game on Thanksgiving? Like, do they not have like Thanksgiving Day games you can play in Chicago or anything like that? So that'll be fun to watch. And then we got Bears Packers on Christmas Day, which once again nothing brings joy on Christmas like throwing beer cans at my wall when Caleb Williams throws a pick in late fourth quarter, but then chugging the next beer when he throws a touchdown pass to win it for us. So that's going to be a stressful day for me, but I enjoy it. I'm going to have fun with my kids and teach them about how Jesus is coming down to save us from the Green Bay Packers. That's a joke, by the way. I'm not trying to be blasphemous or anything, but I'm excited for that Christmas Day game. It's gonna be a fun one. I think those games are gonna be competitive this year. Green Bay's looking for revenge. They're not happy. They felt like they should have won two games against us last year, or 3 games against us last year, essentially, and they had 2 bad losses to us. So they're gonna come out of the gates firing. Let's see how much improved we are as a team. But Bears did draw the number 1 schedule in the NFL, which I need to look more into the NFL scheduling process, but I don't know how we go from second hardest schedule last year to hardest schedule this year. I mean, I know as you get to be a better team, a playoff team, you're going to get a harder schedule. That's how it goes. Seattle should have a hard schedule next year, but Chiefs have had one of the harder schedules the past few years, but I don't know how you go two and then one. I don't know what the logic behind that is. I don't know if they just pick him. I don't know if there's a bias towards like, hey, this team was good. They get a hard schedule next year. I know you're not going to get the easiest schedule if you were a Super Bowl winner last year or something like that. But I don't know how that works because that's just it seems like man, like it's just not fair to the Bears. Like last year they had no business having the second hardest schedule and they came through, but now this year they're going to throw the first. Like so that to me is kind of odd. Colin Cowherd had some where he talked about how it's not the hardest schedule because Bears do get a lot of rest between some games and like their hardest game I think it was it the Seattle game? It was either Seattle or the Packers game where they go from like a Thursday to a Monday the next week, so they get almost like X amount of days rest because they don't have to play. They play Thursday and then they don't have to play that next weekend, and then they skip that next weekend and go on to that Monday after that. So that's a lot of rest. And there was a lot of talk about that when the Chiefs were good about how Chiefs were always getting like a schedule that allowed for a lot of rest so that they got a couple extra days to recover before their games and that might have been part of the reason for their success. People found any way they can to discredit the Chiefs, and I'm not immune to that either. I'm not a Chiefs fan, even though I live in their kingdom right now. But uh, I I I I still think it's one of the hardest schedules in the league. That they're going to run a gauntlet. They do have a few games, like even their first game against Carolina. That's a trap game. There's no way. Like everyone says, well, Carolina's not that great. I'm like, they're not, but they were a playoff team, and that's an easy game where you can go in and like kind of like last year, where like Minnesota, everyone's like, well, Bears have Caleb Williams. We'll see how it goes, and Minnesota squeaks one out. I could see that being the same deal this year with Carolina. So we'll see how that goes. That's also all I have for the Bears, though. They're just kind of they're about to be in the OTA mix, and we'll get into that more. And I'll tell you more about what I'm hearing as far as like practices go, and when we get into mini camp and stuff like that too, we'll start saying like, okay, Caleb looked good today, and you can't put a lot of stock into the mini camp and the OTA stuff, but it is good to kind of see like, okay, this guy's coming out of the gates looking good. Like Tyreek Stevenson's one of those guys who like he's now a starter, but he was I remember like it was the mini camp where he was making a name for himself, and so we're gonna keep our eye on some of that stuff. The last thing I want to talk about, because I know we're getting close to time here, but last thing I want to talk about is so let's talk a little Big Ten football. Northwestern, I'm a Northwestern fan. I grew up right down the road from their stadium, their old stadium that is now a big new shiny new venue they're gonna have. But so Northwestern, they just ever since I was a kid, with the exception of that Rose Bowl year, they've kind of been mediocre. They'll make a bowl game, which is cool, but they never like progress past that. They did have one year under Pat Fitzgerald where they popped up and they lost like three close games. And had they not lost those, they would have been probably like third or fourth ranked in the country. That I remember that was a good year. They had that year where they had Kane Coulter and Trevor Simeon kind of dual quarterbacking, and that was when they were 8-0, and they went into a game with Ohio State, and Ohio State got that crap call from the refs where Coulter made the first down, but they didn't give it to him, and the review even showed it, but ref said no, BCS. So Northwestern now though they're in this position where they've got to start arming themselves. They have one of the nicest practice facilities in all of the Big Ten. That thing's right on the lake. It's got floor to ceiling windows just overlooking the lake. Like if I'm a recruit, I'm looking at that. I'm like, man, that's where I get to practice every day. I'm picking them. That will help. They've got this $800 million stadium. My parents live just down the street from there, so I get to see it when I go visit them for like Christmas or such, and so I get to see how tall it is and what it looks like. I've watched them build it piece by piece because we go there like a couple times a year, and you get to see like the progress they're making, and it looks nice. They've got the infrastructure now. They've got the practice facility. They've got the stadium. They've got lights now, which, believe it or not, Northwestern being the only Power 5 school in all of college football that didn't have permanent lights, and so now they're going to have permanent lights on the stadium, which honestly that was much needed, very very much needed. So they've got that. But I mean, I'm looking at it now, it's all about money. It's not about facilities anymore. That is such an old, outdated way to look at things. You know, it used to be like who has the shiniest stadium or who has the nicest practice facility, and those do make a big difference. Don't get me wrong on that, but it's all about money now. Like Oregon gave out over $40 million. They were like number 2 or 3 in the country for how much money they were giving players this year, and there's no limit on that. Like if you want to give 50 million, you can. Like it's, and I think there's some legislation or some voting that might happen that may actually limit some how much you can actually give based on like the school gets maybe like 20 million a year that they can spread across all sports. I would be in favor of that, but this is an arms race right now, and if you want to be top of the Big Ten, like that's what you're competing with. Ohio State's up there. I don't think Indiana's going to be much next year. They had a lot of seniors. I mean, they're still a well coached team. They are a national title winner, so they're going to get some recruits now. Some people who maybe want to be in the Big Ten but don't want to compete at an Ohio State. He's going to pull Signetti's going to pull in some of those. Like so, it's a program to watch. But I think Indiana's going to take a big step back next year. But you've got the Oregons of the world. You've got USC. Washington's always tough. You got Ohio State. Wisconsin's going to be pretty good this year. Illinois with Brett Bielema still coaching there. Like they're starting to turn a corner. I don't know how much they're gonna get there, but that's starting to look like it's gonna turn a corner. So the one thing Northwestern did that I liked is they went and got Chip Kelly to be their offensive coordinator. Say what you want about Chip Kelly, he's got a kind of a checkered past. You know, he had his great stint when he was in college at Oregon. Then he went to the Eagles and he basically was made head coach and general manager, which was interesting, but they basically gave him the keys to the kingdom there and said, you get to pull in whoever you want, you get to bring in the players you want, but you also get to coach them, and that did not work out. And then he spent some time at, where was he? I think he was at Ohio State doing something, but now he's come over to be offensive coordinator. I think that's going to be one of the best offensive coordinators Northwestern has had in a long time. So they're going to be dealing with that. They're going to be dealing with a little inexperience at quarterback. They did get a stud tight end from the transfer portal, so that'll be good. They've got some decent recruits coming in, but having Chip Kelly there, that's not only going to like make the offense that much better. It's going to be a well-coached offense, a well-disciplined offense, someone who knows how to compete at that highest level. But he brought in Jim Neuheisel, who was the offensive coordinator at UCLA, to be the quarterback coach, which that's really interesting to go from being an offensive coordinator to a quarterback coach. You've convinced the guy to take a step down, but come over to Northwestern, and maybe it's Evanston. I love Evanston. That's my hometown. Maybe being by the lake is cool. Maybe it's way better than UCLA, but UCLA has great weather. So I don't know what Neuheisel's motivation was, but their offensive coaching staff is pretty stout. They've got some good recruits coming in. They've got some good people coming back, but I'm just hoping Northwestern's, they're doing a lot of things right, but they're missing on the arms race. I don't know how much money they have. They should have a lot of money. They make doctors, lawyers, and physicists, engineers like that. It's a great school. They've got a lot of successful people who have gone there. The Kellogg School of Business, like certainly they have enough donors with money who can start forking it over, because you got to start if you're serious about competing. Like that's the question I always have with Northwestern is, are you a serious competitor? Like, are you cool with being a 6-6 team every year? Are you cool with being a 7-5 team every year? Or is it time you start getting 8 or 9 wins and starting to turn that corner? And maybe if you get a couple upsets, you can move your way into the top half of the Big Ten. Like, is that where they're at, or are they just cool like making that bowl game and just kind of keep it steady? Doesn't need to be more than it is. I don't know. But if you're going to start turning the corner and being that big time program, they've really got to start forking over money, because if you look at what the Ohio States and the Oregons of the world are doing, that's your standard. That's what you got to go after. And let's be honest, like I think the Big Ten for football is the best conference in football. A lot of people will argue with me on that and say, no, it's definitely the SEC. And yes, the SEC was king for a long time, but you look at the SEC, like Georgia's a decent team. They're a good team, but they're not running roughshod through the SEC anymore. Uh, Texas is getting Arch Manning back again, so they're going to be as powerful as ever. You got the Texas A&Ms of the world. They lost their offensive coordinator back to Kansas State, though, so I don't know how they're going to be. But you've also got Ole Miss. Ole Miss lost Lane Kiffin, but now Lane Kiffin actually, this is not Chicago related, but Lane Kiffin brought in Ed Orgeron, who won a national title at LSU, to be part of his staff at LSU, which not only is that humble, like egos don't allow for you to bring back a former head coach who won a national title at the school that you are now head coach. So the fact that he's willing to bypass his ego and bring it back and say, okay, I need the help. I want this guy here. This guy knows Baton Rouge like nobody else. Man. And he said, we're coming for you. And that to me, that sort of chills down the spine of the SEC. Like, not only can he replicate what he did at Ole Miss, but he's gonna have Ed Orgeron helping him coach, not even as a head coach. That's some firepower. That's what I talk about when I say arms race. When Northwestern goes out and gets Chip Kelly, it's the same thing. Like, Matt Patricia's defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Like, this is the world we're talking about. These are the names you have to bring in. And so Northwestern's doing a lot right, but Big Ten is by far the king of football right now. Indiana's there. Ohio State won it the year before. Like, they're winning the national championships, and they've got teams in the playoffs every year. And who knows? Miami's probably going to be good again next year, so maybe the ACC finally gets their due. But we'll see what the SEC does. But I think overall, the Big Ten is they've been winning it. Like, maybe not necessarily as far as the rankings go and how many teams are there and how many wins they have, and I don't know what the head-to-head count is, but as far as national championships go, they're coming from the Big Ten. And so Northwestern's got a lot of work to do and a lot of money to spend if they think they're going to start competing with these big boys. And maybe they're just happy with being that bowl team, and maybe they'll jump up and surprise someone some year. Like, make a bowl every year is the goal, but maybe we can jump up and surprise somebody some year and win a few extra games and maybe make a playoff. So I don't know what their strategy is, but they've made a lot of great moves, but I'm telling you, it's an arms race right now, and there's teams making big moves to try and win a national championship. And if Northwestern thinks it's time to start moving up the ranks and going to the top half of the Big Ten, they've got a lot of work to do. So that being said, that's all I have for y'all tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you've tuned in this long, please hit like and subscribe. I need the views, I need the likes, I need the algorithm to start ramping up, and then we can start really having some fun. So hope everyone enjoys their Memorial Day weekend. Go watch the Indy 500. That's a big Chicago tradition for some people I know. They go down every year and watch the race. So please enjoy it safely. Enjoy a safe weekend, and we'll catch everyone when we get some more news and need to talk about some more stuff. All right, thanks all.